Hello and welcome. It's 11 o'clock. It's the 19th day of November, 2021. It is a bright and sunny morning here in Ventura County. Still running a little cold at 59 degrees, but it's supposed to get warmer, and the Santa Anas might be showing up. So, as my broadcasting teacher once said, if you can't talk about anything else, you can always talk about the weather. But we're not talking about the weather today, though that's a good segue. We're talking about asking questions. Because over the past week, and actually as recently as today, I have been directed to several vlogs being posted by people whose legitimacy I question. Segue, we're talking about questions. And there are two vlogs that really stood out to me as just like, what? So, one vlog, this individual is saying he doesn't ask questions from his players. He never asks them what they want. He never asks them what they're looking for. He never wants to hear what they have to say. He doesn't like asking his players questions. He doesn't want any input from his players. He just expects them to accept whatever he says as gospel. And that the idea of players asking him questions literally causes him to curl up in a ball because it's so frustrating. And yet he wonders why his game is on fire and his players are wanting to quit. I don't know, maybe because you won't let them ask questions. Hey, can I open that door? Don't ask me questions. Hey, do I know who this person is and whether they're a friend or not? You cannot ask me questions. Hey, I rolled a 15. Does that hit? Don't ask me questions. It triggers me. And on the opposite side, there's another individual out there who says he never lets his players ask questions. And he never asks questions of them. In fact, he doesn't want to ask them questions. He just wants them to respond. And he doesn't want them to ask him questions. He just wants them to role play and not ask questions, and he will never ask them questions. So his players are not allowed to ask him questions, and he doesn't ask his players questions. So we have two individuals, both of whom have this ironclad policy about question answering. You cannot ask your players any questions, and your players cannot ask you any questions. So I want to think about that for a second. I want to think about how you would run a game where you can't ask any questions and your DM won't ask you any questions. So no point in time does this DM ever say, what do you want to do? Or what do you think? Or are you going to talk to this guy? He never asks questions. And this other guy never wants his players to ask him questions. So he never wants to hear his players say, can I do this? I guess the players just do things and assume that they're doing the right thing. And I don't know, if it was me, I would just start trying to do as ridiculous things as I could, just to seeing if I could get away with it, because apparently I'm not allowed to ask questions. And if I'm not allowed to ask questions, then I'm going to assume I'm right. And I'm going to assume that whatever I'm doing is okay, because you're not telling me I can't. So this reminds me of the one time I played Fate, and you've heard the story before, and my experience with Fate was very weird, because we had a DM who was running a campaign using Savage Worlds, but he had to leave town because of the military. So he handed the campaign to a different DM, and everybody thought, okay, well, whatever, this guy can probably run it. He told him everything he needs to know. This DM decided to switch from Savage Worlds to Fate. So he converted everybody's characters. He converted the world to the Fate system. I wasn't there for the session when everybody got converted. So I came in and was told we'd switch games. I got handed my character sheet. There's all these things I don't recognize it. There's this new dice that I don't recognize because Fate dice don't have numbers on them or anything. They just have little symbols. And I see things on my sheet that I don't recognize, and I try to ask for explanations. What does this mean? What do I need to roll? and I never get them. And so we get to a situation where my character's like, okay, I don't really understand these new rules. I don't understand what these numbers mean. I don't understand what these dice mean. I want to do something. This is what I want to do. Can I do it? And I never got an answer. I never got an answer from the DM or the other players. So I guess this was all storytelling and no question and answering in this game, and no dice rolling, no interaction with the world. You couldn't push buttons. You couldn't question things. Now, I ask questions all the time. I will go to unbelievable lengths to get my questions answered. It's how I survived COVID and the past 2 years, because I refuse to accept just blanket statements, and I refuse to accept things like, oh, we'll contact you. No. I want my answer now, and I'm going to get my answer now, even if I have to talk to your supervisor's supervisor, because trust me, I will. Do not place me in a situation where you're going to tell me I can't ask questions. So this guy's running Fate, and I'm trying to figure things out, and I'm asking questions, and I'm not getting answers from him, and I'm not getting answers from the players. And about an hour in of this bullshit, I'm just like, well, then fine. Because you're not giving me answers, I'm going to assume the answer to every question I ask is yes. And if I ask you if I can do something, like I roll this, does that mean I hit? You won't tell me, then I'm going to assume I hit. So from that point on, for the remainder of that session and the second session that we played Fate, my general assumption was, unless you tell me I can't, I'm going to assume I can. And unless you tell me no, I'm going to assume the answer is yes. I'm just going to assume when I roll the dice, I automatically succeed, because you're not going to tell me whether I didn't succeed or not. And I'm just going to assume that, if I want to do something, it's just going to happen. I'm walking into this building. I'm in the building. I'm going up the stairs. I'm knocking open the door. I see the guy I want to talk to. I'd roll dice to see whether this situation is going to be resolved or not, but you don't want questions asking. So I'm just going to assume the situation is resolved in my favor, and I found what I was looking for. And, oh, hey, look, here's a $10 million sitting on this desk as an addition. I'm going to take that, right? Because you're not going to tell me I can't, so I take the $10 million. That was my one experience with Fate, and that sort of makes me think about this whole, you can't ask questions, I'm not going to ask you questions. That is literally the antithesis of what this game is about. This game is not about I just do whatever the fuck I want, because where's the fun in that? This game is about conflict and conflict resolution. Even the storytelling games are about conflict and conflict resolution. Even the diceless games are about conflict and conflict resolution and character growth. You need to ask questions. We are literally hardwired to ask questions of our reality. In response to the guy who doesn't want anybody to ask him questions, and he never asks questions because it causes him to curl up in a ball, you don't ask questions tells me that you just assume that anything anybody tells you is correct. So when you get that phone call where the guy says the warranty on your car has expired, because you don't ask questions, you just assume that that's correct. And so you just give the guy your credit card information. And when you get that email from the guy in Nigeria who says, well, if you give me 10,000 now, you'll get 10 million later on. Since you don't ask questions, you just give him the money. Your players just are like, well, if we're not allowed to ask you questions, then I'm just going to do shit because you aren't telling me I can't. And I'm just going to, you know what? I give myself 5 levels. Is that okay? Oh, wait, I can't ask you questions. So, yeah, I'm just going to give myself 5 levels because you're not going to stop me. That's ridiculous. That's a horrible way to run a game. That's a horrible way to run your life. Humans are hardwired to ask questions. It's how we learn. That's how we grow. That's how we evolve. Can I do this? Who is this? Why is this happening? Where am I supposed to go? How do I get out of this situation? If you're in a situation where the DM is just like, I'm not going to ask you questions, and you can't ask me questions, just play and whatever, then that's pointless. I don't see how that's any fun. And if you're an asshole like me, you're just going to assume the answer is yes, and you can get away with whatever you want. And then you just have scenarios where it's just like, oh, well, I guess there's no traps. I'm going to walk down the hallway. Oh, I see some bad guys. Well, you know what? I'm just going to walk past them. I don't care. I'm not even going to bother rolling a stealth. I'm just going to assume they can't see me. Hey, the treasure! This is what I came for. This MacGuffin artifact that's guarded by this thing. Hey, thing, I'm going to take this. Is that okay? Oh, you're not telling me I can't because I can't ask you questions. So I'm just going to take the thing and head back. Oh, hey, I delivered the thing. Where's my reward? You know what? That reward isn't big enough. Can I get a bigger reward? In fact, give me your castle. Yeah, just give me... I'm taking the castle. In fact, I'm taking the kingdom. Because I can't ask questions. So therefore, I'm just going to assume the answer is yes. Thank you. This game is now mine. Fuck you. That's just stupid. That's just mind-boggling stupid. I don't want my players to ask me questions. I don't ask my players questions. Two individuals with the same basic thought pattern are out there posting this idea that your players should not ask you questions and you as a GM should not ask them questions. And that's just unbelievably stupid and unbelievably wrong and goes against the very designs of the game. Literally, that's why there's numbers. That's why there's dice rolling. That's why there's bonuses and minuses. That's why there's situations where you have to roll to figure out the puzzle or just detect traps. That's why there's NPCs, so you can interact with them and talk and ask them questions and get answers and find things. It's literally the whole system of every role-playing game, even the most bizarre storytelling ones like Theatrix or Amber or Vampire. Are about question answering. Now, I don't know what happened in my experience with Fate. It was very weird. And then the game died, so I'll never know because I've never met anybody else who played Fate or ran Fate to answer my questions about how does Fate work. So I'm just going to assume that the next time I play Fate, if that ever happens, then I can just do whatever I want because there's no question asking in Fate. Now imagine if that's how life really worked. Just imagine if the answer, if you didn't have to ask questions, just always assume everything you do is correct. Let me take this money out of the bank because nobody's stopping me because I'm going to assume it's okay. That's just a horrible way to... That's not how the world works. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you think? Oh, you know what? I don't care what you think because we don't ask questions anymore. What a bunch of idiots. Just stop. Just stop with this nonsense. You're not making things better. Go away.